Hello everybody and welcome back. Fall has definitely arrived out here in Michigan. The drag strips are closed, it's getting cold out, but there's still a couple of nice days left. So we're going to try to enjoy the Chevelle as much as we absolutely possibly can before the snow starts flying. Now once the snow does start to fly, got a couple of projects planned for this thing. Got the L78 to drop in it, see if we can maybe take care of some of the rust and other things going on as well. The L78 is currently at the machine shop, waiting for Black Friday to come around. Maybe we can find some good deals on some Go Fast parts. I've been really eyeballing the AFR 265s. Would definitely like to just squeeze as much as we can get out of that L78. We'll also kind of keeping it on the safer side of things. We don't want to be spinning that thing to the moon. But if we can just get some power and do it safely, definitely all about that plan there. So we're going to try to at least enjoy what we can of the old Tired Forward 2 that's in here. There was one last little thing that I wanted to get to earlier in the year, but just wasn't able to get time to get back to it. And now is the perfect opportunity. There's one last carburetor I want to try on this thing before we go ahead and pull this engine out. And you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. So this week we're going to try to kick it old school. We're going to see if we can finally get my old Holley Spreadbore double pumper mounted up to the vehicle. Now you've seen this guy on the channel before, but if you're new here, this guy is a Holley 6211. It is going to be an 800 CFM Spreadbore mechanical secondary double pumper. Now I love these quirky little things. Basically Holley designed this thing to be a bolt-on replacement for the Quadrijet. You can see these quirky little bowls here. It puts the fuel inlet exactly where it'd be on the Quadrijet. Then they've got this integrated little aluminum fuel rail here that brings fuel from the primary bowl back to the secondary bowl. Pretty cool little setups. I ended up picking up another guy. This one here is a 6210. This is the baby brother 650 CFM variant, but the bowls on it are in much better condition. It has a little bit of other hardware in case I want to pilfer parts, stuff like that. The bowls on this one were in pretty terrible condition. I did kind of JB weld over everything. Hopefully it won't leak, but had some issues trying to get this thing mounted up. If you look, the bolt pattern here puts the studs like right into the little metering block, so you really have to have real low profile studs. I tried a couple of different things, wasn't able to get it working, and I just kind of gave up on it the last time. But I think these things are really kind of cool. Would really like to see how this thing performs. One common issue with these things is that because they came up with these quirky little fuel bowls here, they're actually side hung, so the float is hanging sideways in there. And I don't believe anybody made a notched version of those floats. And that can be a problem when you're getting hot off the line. You can end up starving the rear of these things because you can't run the jet extensions. But they did make versions of these that had the center hung floats, like these guys here. They're unique to the actual Spreadbores, so they're not all that common, but a viewer out there said that he had them and was nice enough to send them my way here. So we do have some center hung float bowls. We'll probably go to these here in the near future. We'll get the notched floats in there. We'll put the jet extensions in and all of that. I just need to pick up a little bit of hardware. Need to get a plug there for the float level, or the little viewing sight, whatever you want to call it. Need to get some plugs back here as well, and pick up another additional fuel rail for it. But big thank you to him. That'll make it where we can actually take this thing out to the track, have some fun out there with it without really just starving it like we're gonna with these here. But for right now, it should be good enough to get out on the street and just drive it around and see how it performs. So let's go ahead and see if we can finally figure out a stud situation and get this thing mounted up. So I've got a bunch of these short little ARP studs here, but you can see how they got that little dome on the top of them. And I think if I just cut these things off a thread or two beneath that dome there, it should be about the perfect height for what I need. So I'm going to go ahead and basically just take the death wheel to them. You can see I've got the nuts threaded on here already. That way once I cut them off, I can just take the nut right back off and it'll clean up the threads for me as it goes. It's pretty easy to muck up the threads and just makes it really nice if you already have it threaded on there, get them all cleaned up. So we'll go ahead and give that a try and see if that gets these things to the right height and see if we can finally get this stupid carburetor mounted up. Alright, so let's go ahead and get the old brawler out of the way again. This poor thing has been on and off here a few thousand times at this point. And I forgot this thing's got that adapter plate. I need to get that out of there as well. Alright, everything's loose. I'm gonna find my flathead and we'll pop off the throttle cable. Getting this throttle cable off of here is kind of a pain in the butt. Thing clips on there with some force. There we go. Now I will need to figure out what I do with my quadjet throttle bracket. I forgot I have to change that out as well. Now I was noticing that these bolts here seem to be a little bit shorter than the ARP ones, so if the thread's the same, I might just go ahead and use these. Might be just easier to get these in there and out of there and hopefully get a wrench on them than those taller ARP ones. Alright, let's get this thing out of here. So I've been making just a little bit of progress here. You can see I've got my shortened studs installed. I've got 2 nuts actually started. So the way to do this is basically get your studs in there, set the carburetor down, and then kind of lift up on one end, slide your nuts in and get them started on each stud because it won't fit between the top of the stud and the metering block. You kind of have to have them loose, lift it up a bit, slide it in there, then start it and just leave all 4 corners loose until you get all 4 of them started this way. Then you come back and tighten everything at the end. So I've got 2 of them done on this side. Got to go do the other side, track down my throttle bracket as well and get that mounted up in here, but slowly getting there. So it was definitely a fight, but it is finally on there. Got everything hooked up, got every kind of vacuum port all blocked off, so it should be ready to fire up. Gonna take a little bit of cranking here to get the bowls filled up, but gonna go ahead, probably just prime on everything, check for leaks, stuff like that, and we'll see if we can get this thing to fire up, and hopefully it runs pretty close because taking this thing back off is not gonna be fun. So I had to come through and chase just a couple of few leaks, got everything retightened back up here. Probably need to bump the idle up just a touch until she gets warmed up and I can come around and play with the idle screws just a little bit, but she sounds pretty dang good overall, so let's go ahead and try to get her fired back up and dialed in. So it's sounding pretty good, got it dialed in just a little bit once it warmed up. Seems to be running pretty happy. Let's go ahead and go for a test drive. To run pretty dang good. Had a little bit of a lean spike there when I got into it, but came back around. Didn't really hesitate, but seems to scoot pretty dang good overall. I just kind of put it back to factory settings because the jetting in it was pretty wild and pretty different from the way that it should have came when I first got it, but not bad. Pretty dang good. I think I even heard a chirp there on the shift. Pretty stout. And if I can get this thing to run, I don't know how good it'll run with the L78, but I'm pretty excited about this carburetor. I just love how quirky it is. And running with old school tech, there's just something fun and cool about it. might need to adjust on the pump a little bit because it does get a little lean there right on the hit. And I had to do that on the Brawler as well. This engine really seems to like to be very fat off the hit. But not bad other than that. Idle's wanting to hang up just a touch bit. But if I just kind of snap the throttle, it comes back down normally. So probably just spring tension, something along those lines. Seems to have great driving ratios, especially compared to the Brawler. It seems pretty happy in just about any condition so far, whereas the Brawler would get really fat at cruise at higher speed. This one seems to do pretty decent. I kept the test drive pretty short because the sun sets real early out here in Michigan as of late. And there's quite a bit of traffic out there, but I mean, this thing drives incredibly good. I am very impressed with the performance of this thing. And for basically just throwing it through the sonic cleaner there, getting it cleaned up, doing a quick little rebuild on it, putting it back to factory specs, it's awfully dang close and performs pretty darn good on here. The ratios looked really good at cruise. They were fantastic, especially compared to the Brawler. Most of the part throttle stuff looked pretty good. I didn't really notice a whole lot to what the ratios looked like when I was really getting on it. They looked pretty good to me, but was more concerned with just making sure I was staying on the road, that sort of thing. Didn't really keep my eye on it, but pretty dang impressive overall. Might need to come through and maybe play around with the pump cams, maybe change out the squirters on it, something like that. I might go ahead and check and see if this will actually accept the more modern style squirters. These things kind of have a little bit of a strange squirter design on them. Let's go take a peek at that. So grab the old 6210 here because I thought maybe it had the original nozzles on there, but nope. Looks like somebody might have stole those in the past. What I want to see is if the newer style nozzles like this guy here will fit, because obviously I got a bunch of these. They're a little bit different in style. The ones that were originally on here had like two big metal shrouds on either side of this thing. Not sure if it was for diverting air, if it helped with atomization, or how exactly those ones worked, but I just want to see if this guy here will fit on here. And it looks like it will. The little notch there all lines up. Seems like it aims the discharge exactly where it needs to be. So yeah, these should work out just fine. The only thing is I don't have the high flow screws on hand. So basically, the fuel right now just kind of comes up around the outside of the threads. You can see there's little notches there. And then it kind of flows through here, but they make different ones where the actual screw is drilled through and allows more fuel to flow. I think they require them at like 35 size, something like that, but I usually swap those in just from the start. That way I don't have to think about it, but I do not have any on hand. In addition to that, you can see on these things that all the air bleeds are basically just drilled into the casting. They're not interchangeable, so not quite as flexible as the Brawler is. Hopefully we don't have to get that granular with this thing. Pretty dang happy with how it ran. So I'm probably just going to go ahead and leave this guy on there a little bit, have fun with it, go on a color tour or something like that, and just see how it runs. But pretty dang impressed overall. So that's going to do it here this week. I had a lot of fun. I was kind of dreading trying to get that carburetor on there, but it actually ended up not being that bad at all, and still just amazed at how good it runs. So I'm going to go enjoy this thing through the coming week here. Not a whole lot else going on right now. Just waiting for stuff to come back from the machine shop. Waiting for some Black Friday deals to hopefully come around and pick up a couple of other goodies, but still a lot to do. Winter is definitely coming out here quick, but I'm going to try to enjoy the cars as much as I can before the snow flies. So that's going to do it here this week. I'll catch you next week. Thank you all so much for watching.